Hello to all viewers of TV 24/7 in Brazil and all over the world. Today, a very special guest. We'll be talking about the latest geopolitical developments in Brazil, in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which we saw just recently, and hopefully repercussions about the United States too. And let me introduce this great guest today. I'm very honored to be interviewing today Jeffrey Sachs, a world-renowned economics professor, best-selling author, innovative educator, and a global leader in global sustainable development thought. Thank you very much for coming to
Thank you.
TV
Thanks
7.
for the kind introduction. Very nice to be with you.
It is honestly such a pleasure. So since we are running a bit low on time already, I wanted to start, Professor. We are currently through a very historic day, for Brazil. Brazil right now is facing this whole tension surrounding the trial of Jair Bolsonaro. Jair Bolsonaro, he's being trialed for leading the coup plot against President Lula. And I wanted to pose this question to you, Professor. Just over the weekend, The Economist published a sort of editorial talking about this question of democratic maturity in the way that Brazil has achieved perhaps democratic maturity, whereas the United States has not managed to do so, particularly in the case of Donald Trump. So, do you agree with that analysis? What do you have to say about this?
Brazil is demonstrating the rule of law. And so there will be a verdict based on a judicial process that is an independent judicial process. This is very important and very impressive, especially in the context of the threats that the United States made against Brazil and actually actions that the U.S. took against Brazil because of this legal process. In the United States, we are in a retrogression. Not only do we not have a rule of law, we have one-man rule who declares that he can do what he wants. He declares some emergency and then imposes taxes or other measures that are clearly, according to our Constitution, the responsibility of Congress, not of Donald Trump. So we're in a very bad situation in the United States, and it is important, as you are emphasizing, to pose that against the very responsible process that's underway in Brazil.
Thank you very much for your analysis, Professor. Now, sticking to the region, we have seen reports that were confirmed already, actually, of the military detachments coming out of the United States to Caribbean waters. Those naval deployments, according to President Maduro, stated just yesterday, loaded with over 1,000 missiles, potentially pointing to Venezuela. Can you give us perhaps a forecast of what is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen since we have such strong force being used?
Well, I can give you only a backcast, which is that the U.S. has intervened dozens of times in the Western Hemisphere to overthrow governments. The U.S. has been trying to overthrow the Venezuelan government for more than 20 years, starting with the presidency of Hugo Chavez and then with the presidency of Maduro. It's been a series of attempted coups or the use of sanction measures to crush the Venezuelan economy, with the idea that this would lead to the overthrow of the government. All of this is blatantly illegal by international law. It has failed repeatedly. It has impoverished Venezuela, though. It succeeded in breaking the economy, but not breaking the political structure. It's all disgusting and it's all obsessive. Venezuela poses zero threat to the United States or to anybody else. This is purely a matter of internal politics in Venezuela, whatever is the question. But the United States, including our current Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, have displayed an obsession. I don't know whether Trump is showing off, trying to induce fear, or is on the verge of a violent attack on Venezuela. Any of those is possible. I know that in his first term, actually in his first year as president, President Trump had a dinner with some Central American leaders. One of the Central American presidents that was at the dinner at the time told me that Trump expressed openly the question, why don't I just invade Venezuela? And some of the others at the dinner said, maybe that wouldn't be such a good idea, Mr. President. But this was an open surmise, amusing of Donald Trump. This is a kind of thuggery that we know from American history. It applies all over the world, but it has been a special formula within the Western Hemisphere.
It is very worrying indeed. We don't know what is going to happen, and we're just following those events on a day-to-day basis. So hopefully we don't have just the scenario that President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, referred to yesterday, basically turning Venezuela into Iraq.
A
basically.
new war zone. Anything is possible. I would say the U.S. is so overstretched and increasingly despised around the world that this would be a terrible idea on top of a terrible idea. This is an awful time. Donald Trump should not be confused that any kind of war or regime change operation would somehow redound to his benefit or the U.S. benefit. But he's a confused man, so I don't think we can be sure.
And Professor, I think you alluded to the fact that Washington and Europe, Brussels, they're somehow becoming increasingly isolated. I think you've referred to this many times. Europe, we know because of the sanctions that were applied against Russia because of the war in Ukraine, and right now Washington applying tariffs arbitrarily against the country where I speak from, for example, and applied in such a way that was perhaps unique, actually, because it was declaredly there a political reason for the 50% tariff that we are currently suffering. Facing this, I wanted to pose you the following question. Do you think that by doing such things, the United States, Europe, they're actually becoming increasingly isolated, whereas the global South, which is often portrayed as, oh, Russia is isolated, China might be isolated, Iran. Is it actually the fact that Europe and the United States are the ones being isolated right now?
There's no doubt that what's happening is the end of the Western-led world. Remember that Europe dominated the world roughly for 250 years, from around 1750 to around 1900. This was the European age of empire. And that empire, either in a very formal imperial sense or in an implicit sense of financial domination and big business domination, was pervasive in all parts of the world. In the first half of the 20th century, Europe lost that empire because Europe engaged in two bloody civil wars, which we call World War I and World War II. After that, the United States became the imperial power of the world. It was resisted by the Soviet Union and its bloc, but the US and its military alliance was always dominant, though it couldn't crush the other side. The Soviet Union ended in 1991 when Russia and 14 other countries were the successors of the Soviet Union. And at that time, the United States said, well, now we just run the world by ourselves. There's absolutely no competition. We're the sole superpower. That was a great illusion and delusion, I would say. Delusional in that it was kind of power going to the heads of these intoxicated, ignorant people in Washington, many of them real fools and very nasty people. They also didn't anticipate anything like the rise of China, which was the most significant of these events. But basically, there in the picture, we see President Putin, Prime Minister Modi, and President Xi, three superpowers that prove that the United States is not only not alone, it doesn't call the shots anymore. So what we're observing is the end of a long historical process. And the arrogance is not only the US, it's also in Europe. Basically, this so-called Western world, which interestingly, from my point of view, is only about 12% of the world population. If you add up the United States and the European Union and Britain and a few other countries, it's about 12% of the world population. They really believe to this day that they run the world, that they can dictate whether Brazil has a court case, whether India buys oil from Russia, and so forth. So the mindset is continued arrogance. The reality is multipolarity. When you have the mindset and you then exercise your arrogantly derived decision making, you end up isolating yourself even more, because the United States, Donald Trump is the personification of that, of course. He stomps up and down, makes demands of Brazil, makes demands of India, makes demands of Russia, makes demands of China, and they shrug their shoulders. Well, no, Donald. I think President Lula put it the best of all when he said, we don't need an emperor. This is really the point. Donald Trump wants to be the emperor of the world. He's not. He's confused. He thinks that his demand is the global writ, but it isn't. And the meeting that took place in Tianjin, China, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, just showed again, no, thank you. We're here. Actually, not only are we here, we're getting closer and closer together, whether it's the SCO, this Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is an Asian grouping, or the BRICS, which is a global grouping that Brazil has the presidency this year. Basically, most of the world is saying to the United States, stop wagging your finger at us. We don't accept it.
Great analysis, Professor. And a question that I'm always thinking about is the following. You see reports in the media, in the channels where you expect to see that initiatives such as the Belt and Road Initiative led by China, for example, they could lead to a debt burden in the countries that adhere to it. I speak from a country that has actually not adhered to the Belt and Road, but is a country in Latin America or South America, I believe, that gets the most amount of investments in China. I wanted to have your point of view about well, perhaps not specifically in the case of Brazil, that might be too particular, but the Belt and Road Initiative in general, and your response to that claim that it might lead to a debt burden.
There are 2 points about China that are very important to understand. One is it has the world's largest industrial base. It's producing a lot of what the world really wants and needs. It's producing the solar power modules. It's producing the electric vehicles. It's producing the clean shipping, the hydrogen vessels. It's producing the green hydrogen hydrolysis apparatus. It's producing the fast rail. It's really impressive, by the way. And I've been watching China close up for more than 40 years. They've made stupendous progress from poverty to wealth, and from a user of technology to a cutting edge innovator of technology. Really a good role model. They've worked hard to accomplish this, long hours. And they've also, the second point is, saved a lot of their income each year for investment. Now, they save so much that they actually use some of that saving to help other countries finance their investments. And that's what the Belt and Road Initiative is. China is a saving surplus country, meaning that it's actually efficient for China to invest abroad, not only to invest at home. It can invest abroad by companies moving abroad, for example, to manufacture Chinese brand electric vehicles abroad, or by lending money to governments that use that to buy Chinese-made infrastructure, for example. Well, that's what the Belt and Road Initiative is. And the main point of the Belt and Road Initiative is that if the investments that are being financed have a good high rate of return and higher than the cost of the capital that is being lent, it's a smart thing to do to make these investments. I urge the Chinese government in one particular thing, and that is that when they're lending to low-income countries, for example, in Africa, that they should make the maturity of the loan under Belt and Road 20 years or longer, because a poor country needs a lot of time to return a loan like this, because the growth process is a 20-year plus growth process. But the charge that the Belt and Road Initiative is somehow pernicious is a jealous statement by the US, which doesn't have a saving surplus. It has to borrow from the rest of the world, doesn't have this vast manufacturing capacity to share with the rest of the world, is not at the cutting edge of fast rail or renewable energy or clean ocean shipping. And so it couldn't do the Belt and Road Initiative the same way. I'd like it to be more forward-looking, more engaged in the rest of the world, not just launching trade wars. But for the US to charge that something's wrong with the Belt and Road Initiative is to put everything upside down. China should be praised for using its national saving to help spur development all over the world. It should take care that the loan terms are sound, but that can be done and should be done. And it should take care that the investments that are being made are good, profitable, long-term investments. But having said both of those things, this is a wonderful program that should be expanded, not one that should be criticized.
And Professor, is the Belt and Road Initiative, yesterday, for example, we also just saw the launch of what I believe is called the Global Governance Initiative at the summit in Tianjin. Do you believe that China right now is putting forth such ideas, and such ideas are fundamentally different it is proposing truly a global order that is distinct from what we have seen in the past. Something that, for example, this article that I put up just alluded to. Basically, this rise came without a shot being fired. And is it a proposal for a better future, do you believe?
I do believe so. One of the points of the global governance initiative is that it is to support the United Nations and the UN Charter. So China's not saying we're going to lead. China is saying we're going to help build a United Nations centered world based on sovereignty, non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries, trade, openness, ecological civilization, many, many important ideas, and China's doing an effective job of that. The United States, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, sometimes played that role, I must say, but sporadically. The US had its positive side, where it said we should make an open system. Indeed, the UN itself is a US achievement of our greatest president, Franklin Roosevelt. So there were times when the US played a constructive role. But with the waning of US power, the US has turned nasty. It always had a nasty underpinning, or not underpinning, but it always had a nasty side, let me say. All those interventions militarily in Latin America, all the regime change operations, very cruel and stupid wars like the Vietnam War were the dark side of America. That's always been there. But there was a positive side as well at times. That positive side is not to be seen right now. Donald Trump is kind of the I don't know if it's the end of the road, but it's a far advanced descent into radical selfishness and absurdity and stupidity. And so we don't see global institution building. Quite the contrary, the US is walking out of the Paris Climate Agreement. The United States is walking out of the World Health Organization. The United States is walking out of the Human Rights Council. The United States is rejecting the Sustainable Development Goals. By the way, a lot of that involves Brazil. Brazil hosts the next meeting of the climate conference. Maybe it's good news. It'll be a quieter meeting. The U.S. won't be there. It was Brazil where the Sustainable Development Goals were born, in the beautiful city of Rio de Janeiro. The idea was born in 2012. The United States is turning its back on all of these things. And Trump, in a way that is so obnoxious, I have to say, and personally offensive, that he's really quickly uniting the rest of the world against the U.S. or independent of the U.S. And so Trump made the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting a great success. Remarkably, in the stupidity of this administration, they alienated Brazil, of course, but they alienated India also, which, in a way that I never very much liked, the U.S. was courting India to help to oppose China. Well, that's a typical U.S. move. We don't really like you, but we do want to use you. And they wanted to use India against China. But at least in that attempt, they expressed some pleasantry towards India. Donald Trump dropped the facade, made demands on India. When India didn't completely capitulate, he did what he did with Brazil, put on 50% tariffs and start completely denigrating language about India. And so he kind of induced Prime Minister Modi right into the arms of President Xi and President Putin. I don't mind that because I think what they're doing makes sense, but it's against what the U.S. thought it wanted to do. But it's my point that all of this nastiness coming from the US simply unites the rest of the world.
Great analysis, Professor. I wanted to close off with a bit of an outside question, perhaps escaping a bit from the realm of geopolitics. Internally, in the United States, we have seen a lot of talk about the Jeffrey Epstein case and possible repercussions even for Donald Trump. Um, right now, Donald Trump has perhaps sidelined this topic a little bit, as well as the media. But I wanted to get your impressions as you're speaking from there, if I'm not mistaken. How are those facts evolving? Do you expect this to shake up a little bit the political scenario in the United States?
What makes the Epstein case not just a bizarre and awful episode of criminality, of sex trafficking, and of abuse of children, but something geopolitical, is the apparent reality that Epstein was a Mossad asset. This is not proved, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence for it. I've reviewed the evidence myself. Many others have. I think that there's a very good chance that this was an Israeli sting operation to create blackmail material against the U.S. political class. I think they probably have it, and I think that it was used for this blackmail purpose, and I think that it affects U.S. politics because there are a lot of U.S. politicians, and quite possibly Trump himself, who know that there's very compromising material on them in the hands of the Mossad. We do know that the Mossad and the CIA have been arm in arm for decades also, which is very unpleasant and unnerving. The Mossad is kind of an assassination organization. It does a lot of dirty work, and no doubt it's worked closely with the CIA. So there's a lot going on with this. And when Trump abruptly said, well, there don't exist the files, nothing to see, nothing to be released, nobody believes that, especially after a long campaign of exactly the opposite by him and his followers. So I think it's something that is more than awful criminality. I think it is a geopolitical issue. I don't know whether we'll ever get to the heart of it, because the truth is many great crimes in the United States never get really properly exposed.
Well, unfortunately, we have this interview very short, but I believe we have managed to cover several topics. And
Terrific.
I would like to thank you very much for your participation here in TV 24/7, Brazil 24/7. Professor, thank you very much again.
Great to be with you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Well,
Bye-bye.
see you. Thank you.